Okay.
Can you give us a little bit of the history about how this report, the strategic direction report, was created in terms of how it's gotten to the procedure or the place it is now, a little bit of the procedure and history of the development of it?
The question was, how did the strategic direction report come into being?
Well, I think it came from a number of different perspectives. I think we had heard from a lot of our constituents, whether that's the General Assembly, whether it's trustees, whether it's alumni, that the ability to help us to, convey the message about the University of Missouri, that whether it was on a campus level set of issues or talking about the entirety of the University of Missouri, that we needed to come up with a more concise and clear way of describing it. So I think that was one of the dimensions. And as I came on board in February, it also gave me a vehicle, an endpoint, if you will, of ensuring that there was the right level of strategic planning occurring at the campus level as well as with the system staff. So we had a series of meetings starting in the late spring and culminating in the summer where those plans were reviewed, and from that we decided to create this directions document as a way of describing the university. And important part of that was ensure that the vision and the mission were contemporary, respecting the history of our great institution, but also to ensure that we're sending a very clear message that we are about ensuring Missouri's future as well. And the final piece was the important aspect of the accountability measures. We believe that our ability to describe the university in quality and quantifiable terms will be very important for all of those that support the university. So that I think captures a little bit of the history and how we got there. And certainly the Board of Curators had asked, as I came on board, to review the strategic plans of the university, and this accomplishes that, yet at the same time recognizes that this is dynamic. It's not a binder that goes on the shelf and doesn't get revisited. It's something that we will constantly pay attention to. Yes.
We've heard a plan about lobbying efforts and information efforts after the elections from the governmental relations crew. How closely do board members plan to work with legislators in lobbying efforts for the system?
Well, typically what we do is we certainly work in coordination with the university plan. And so once the dust settles, so to speak, and we know what we're looking forward to in the upcoming years, we will be led by Gary Forsey and Steve Knorr in that regard, and certainly use our personal relationships and personal contacts throughout the state in order to advocate on behalf of the University of Missouri and to continue to keep our number one priority issue, I think that Gary Forsey outlined, was the source of funding and stability of funding. And so we would certainly carry that charge forth vehemently and with a lot of energy and excitement behind it.
Any questions from the phone? Kanita?
Murray Williams.
Murray, okay.
I do have a couple of questions. The first one, you're talking about funding. We know that funding comes from the state, but also there's the fundraising and campaigning that goes on. And I just wanted to ask, with the state of the economy right now, everybody's watching it. I was just curious, President Forsey, if you could just talk a little bit about some of the concerns you might have with the state of the economy and the impact that could have on the university in terms of corporate funding and support. Where does MU stand, and what kind of concerns might you have about that?
Well, Maria, obviously this is a very dynamic situation that we're in, and so I don't think there can be any conclusions drawn based on what has been a relatively rapid deterioration in our state and around the country and around the world for that matter. But let me say this, and part of what we conveyed over the last 2 days is that in a difficult economic time, whether it's private donors, private supporters, corporations, or the state ought to be looking for where great investments could be made. And I think what we've conveyed this morning ought to make it very clear that investing in higher education, investing in education, and certainly parochially investing in University of Missouri is as good an investment as anyone could find. It secures our future. It deals with critical issues of service to our state, including establishing healthcare professionals that can fill critical state needs, and the whole issue of economic development and job creation. And no better place than investing in education. So I think as we tackle what inevitably will be a challenging environment, that will be our message, and I think that message will resonate. Corporations, for example, may not be able to take on their own research and development, may look for university to partner with, which again, our land-grant mission and the capabilities of our 4 campuses can serve us well. So I'm actually optimistic based on the incredible work that our campuses have done to engage with alumni, engage with supporters, and engage with partners to have this part of our outreach not be impacted by the economy. But again, too early to make that call, but we certainly have a great message to convey.
Great, thank you. I do have another question. You mentioned on the last part of the meeting, as you were talking, you mentioned something about when you're talking about pipelines, and you mentioned something about taking over school systems and a discussion on the urban areas. And I wondered if you could elaborate. What do you mean by that? What are you talking about? Taking over school systems in urban areas?
Well, I in fact said that we had no interest in that, period to end. During the turmoil that's existed in Kansas City as well as in St. Louis, there has been a number of different overtures, including questions I think you've raised with me about what role UMKC and UMSL and University of Missouri Columbia should play both at the support level for teachers and administrators as well as governance. And I've been very clear that we want and should be an enabler of teaching and administration and have no role to play except as a community leader that UMKC plays in the issue of governance. So I want to be very clear about that. So I was making that as a hypothetical. Where our attention is on early childhood development and ensuring that that pipeline of students coming through the PK through 12 and early childhood development have the best chance to be successful. We need to play an important role in that.
Thank you. Thank you very much, President Forsey.
You bet. Thank you.
Yeah, I have a question. This is Kavita Kumar from the Post-Dispatch.
Yes, Kavita.
In wake of the economic troubles of the last couple of weeks, some schools around the country have been talking about reducing their spending from their endowment and also delaying some building projects. Are either of those issues that the University of Missouri is talking about right now?
Well, Kavita, certainly both yesterday in committee as well as this morning by our Chief Financial Officer providing an update on across dimensions of how our debt is being handled, how our endowment, how our retirement fund, what perspective we have on how students are being impacted. We are vigilant, and I think that's the word I would use today, vigilant across all of those dimensions, because this environment has been changing day to day and week to week. So without question, we have to look at expense categories. We have to look at those things that are near term and can be controlled, those things that are medium term, and those things that are long term. And suffice to say that we are vigilant in that regard as we think about the potential impacts that could continue to roil through our state and through our country. So those are not issues that we're taking lightly and are issues that we're paying high attention to. We have made no pronouncements publicly about that, and I think at some level it's premature until we have a chance to work with our General Assembly and work with the existing Governor Matt Blunt as well as the newly elected governor to determine the state's plan and to be sure that we're working with them and not simply reacting, and that's our intent.
So are there any thoughts right now that there might be less financial aid, for example, available for next year's incoming class? I know lots of students are looking to begin applying to schools, and they worry about how they're going to finance their education. And some schools are saying we're not going to have as much financial aid available because our endowment's not doing as well. Is that something that students applying to University of Missouri are going to have to worry about too?
Well, I think students, if they're accessing the traditional forms of student aid, we know that the federal government has backstopped those sources, and there should not be issues there. I can't speak to the other forms that parents and students.
No, I'm talking more about institutional aid, like the financial aid that the scholarships that the university gives out. Are there still going to be the same number or more scholarships?
Well, specifically on our endowment, we know that based on our averaging rules that we have in place, and we covered this yesterday in the committee meeting, that we would provide, in a worst case, 96% of the funding level that went out in 2008, and that would represent a very minor impact on student funding, but nevertheless there could be some impact. But 96% of about a $40 million output this year would again represent a very small impact, but something that again would be a worst case scenario as we look today.
Thank you.
Okay. Any other questions? Good?
Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Look forward to seeing you. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
It's good to see you.